welcome again every one of our audience on behalf of le Forum des Experts Libanais, headed by Mrs. Nada Chehab. I also warmly welcome our guests who participate at this economic and financial roundtable. All of them have years and years of expertise in banking and financial solutions in international markets. Mr. Samir Hammoud, President of Banking Commission of Banking Control Commission Lebanon, is coming from Beirut. Mr. Fouad Trad, pour les familiers, Fouad, is coming from Brussels, and well done, Fouad. Mrs. Violaine Claire and Shireen Aoudi have the privilege of being citizens of the City of Light. You have my promise that our roundtable will be sweet and short. The lecture of every one of our guests would not exceed 15 minutes max. I can assure you that la francophonie is still doing very well, especially in Lebanon. No worries, ladies and gentlemen. Nevertheless, Mr. Samir Hammoud did his studies in English. Of course, he understands French, but he will be grateful if you ask your question in English or in Arabic, as he is Lebanese and fluent in Arabic. Of course, I am here to intervene as a moderator if something will go against the flow. As such, I will tackle immediately our exciting topic. Yes, exciting, as all the world is suffering now from the same illness. Controlling the crime of financing terrorism and struggling against money laundering. To be ahead of the game, you should identify your enemies. Donc, je dirais en deux mots qu'aujourd'hui, on va parler du contrôle bancaire parce que c'est un seul problème qui est celui de la lutte contre le blanchiment d'argent et le financement du terrorisme. Nous avons la réglementation, disons, le cadre réglementaire général, nous attendons, c'est un processus évolutif, nous attendons dans le temps des décrets d'application. C'est une obsession pour les Libanais, pour les banquiers libanais, c'est une charge pour la clientèle libanaise et pour les autorités de contrôle, c'est un grand fardeau. Donc, nous avons cette phobie, mais le gouvernement libanais a pris la décision, et c'est une décision qui ne prête pas à équivoque ou à interprétation. Le Liban est conforme et s'est conformé, il est conforme et se conformera aux règlements, aux conventions internationales de lutte contre le blanchiment d'argent et de financement du terrorisme. C'est une question de vie ou de mort pour notre nation, c'est une question de vie ou de mort pour les banques. À vous, M. Hammoud.
Merci, Liliane. Excuse me, I will talk in English, and I hope that I will not bother you. Thank you for giving this a chance, addressing a very important subject, tackling the role of the Banking Control Commissions on the bank foreign operations and the bank's operations overseas. First, I would say that two remarks could be of important weight. One, the global crisis that happened and started in 2008 pushed the central banks to take measures using unconventional instruments and tools, and for the first time. The second remark, the prevailing and current turmoil in the area, in the Near East and in the Middle East, made the banks responsible and feed the responsibility in combating financing terrorism. This is a clear commitment from this area, from the banking sector, and from Lebanon, that we are part of the world, of the free world, and we are committed. It's our bond that we are on the way of combating financing terrorism and fighting the money laundering. When we are talking about the banking operations overseas, I would say that why should Lebanon go outside? This is a small country, no matter how important it is. The size, the volume of the banking sector is important to the Lebanese economy and the backbone of the Lebanese economy. But why going outside? And if you look around us today, we see that the international banks are coming back home, closing their doors, closing their subsidiaries and their branches outside, and trying to trim their operations coming back home. Why we are going outside? Tackling and handling this subject, in my opinion, allow me to divide the banking presence and the Lebanese bank's presence overseas into 3 time periods. Each time period has its reasons and its also justifications. These periods, I would take the first period ranging between the 1950 and 1974, the second period from 1975 to 1992, and the third period from 1993 to date. The first period, if you remember, and you are Lebanese and most of you that may remember, the first period, 1951, was Lebanon at its beginning. And in 56, it was our pride that the parliament, the Lebanese parliament, enacted the Lebanese secrecy law. And at that time, it was a big issue that we serviced not only Lebanon, we serviced the area where the political were in turbulences. And all the surrounding came to Lebanon to consider this is the banking sector of the East, the banking sector of the Orient. It is the Swiss of the Orient. And we benefited highly from the banking secrecy at the time, that the money could be moved from outside into Lebanon, not only from the Lebanese diaspora, but all from the countries, from the political figures of these countries coming into Lebanon. At that time, we need not to go outside. We have to service our market inside. And if you remember in that area, this time, the banking sector in Lebanon was overwhelmed by the presence of the foreign banks in Lebanon rather than our presence outside. At that time, Lebanon was overwhelmed by the international foreign banks, banks from Russia, from the East Europe, from West Europe, from America, from Canada, from everywhere. And these were not small banks, were international big banks, coming not only to service the Lebanese market, came to Lebanon to be a regional hub and to service the region as a whole. And despite that, we had to have a giant bank at that time, established in 1951 and collapsed in 1966, along and in line with the establishment and formation of the central bank that was the Inter Bank, that went to the Middle East, went to Europe, and went to the Americas, to the South and to the North America. So this is the period followed by, it ended in 1974. In 1975, we had, unfortunately, the civil war that destroyed, damaged the infrastructure of Lebanon. And at that time, instead of being overwhelmed by the foreign banks pulled out and left Lebanon. All the banks shut down. There they closed their doors. And they followed each other in pulling out from Lebanon and going back home. And the market was taken the responsibility by the national banks. National banks were small banks, not well developed. They worked too hard to develop the human capital, to develop even the financial capital, to develop the technology capital, the information system. And in Lebanon, the national banks took the responsibility and assumed that responsibility. And on this period, they had the need to go outside for one simple reason, that they followed the business people. They followed the economic units. They followed the economic firms that left Lebanon and came And in particular, we came to France because the Lebanon, we cannot deny and we admit and we are proud that is influenced and highly influenced by the French culture over its history. So the relationship between Lebanon and France was exceptional. And the first even station for the Lebanese banks to come was to Lebanon, and then moved to Switzerland, to England. The America is very far, though we went there, but on a narrower scale. And that's the reason then for the banks to go outside, where to follow, and even to service their customers, because the economy at that time was completely damaged. And where? The commercial center, completely destroyed. Where it was centralized. All the banking head offices, headquarters were at the commercial center. Or the headquarters of the economic unit and all the business people were at the commercial center, and it was completely destroyed. After 1992, in that period, you remember that we had really a catastrophic event when our national currency completely collapsed, starting 1984. And went into peak in 1992. The Lebanese pound went down from £3 for the dollars, or 3.5 for the dollars, to 2,800 pounds for the dollar. In 1992, that stopped, and the resumption of the stability and restoration of peace, that we could attract more money coming into Lebanon. And this is the case of Lebanon. Whenever we feel that there is stability and peace, be sure there will be more capital influx into the country. So that with the stability of Lebanon, we received a big influx of money. And that was coupled by another influx of capital coming after the global crisis. The global crisis where the Lebanese, and not only the Lebanese and the surroundings felt, they feared the deterioration of the currency and the failure of the banks, the failure of the capital market, the stocks, the bonds, everything. They not only transferred for subsidies of their families, they transferred most or part and big part of their savings into Lebanon, and they went into investment into real estate. And at that time also, we had somehow that the money supply and the money mass far exceeding the economic capacity and absorption capacity. That the economy of Lebanon is not able to absorb that excessive liquidity. And for that reason, Lebanon became the liquidity of the banking sector is a burden on the economy. Every time when there is excess liquidity not injected in the economy, this is a real additional cost on the economy. So you have to find out an exit for that excess liquidity. The only way to find an exit, so we have to look for two things. One, we will not happy, and we are not happy with it, but this is somehow the present situation of the Lebanese government, where the debt is high and could absorb a part of that liquidity through injecting part of this liquidity to finance the capital debt and the fiscal deficit. And the second, we went outside. Banks went outside now, not to the developed markets, not to Europe. Europe is a developed market where you'll be having very small share. We went to more riskier, and they went to riskier markets. They went to Syria, they went to Iraq, they went to Jordan, they went to Egypt, they went to Cyprus, they went to Turkey, because this will even somehow balance the cost and benefits of these banks. So our overseas operations now, we go to the heart of the issue, that we are as a control commission, we cannot be comfortable with our banks operating outside unless we trust and we have confidence in the level and the standard of the control and supervisory authority of that country. When we came to France, we learned from France the supervision. And we, of course, we trust and highly evaluate and highly appreciate the level of the supervisory conducted by France and by the Europe at the European standard. But when going to these primitive markets, we have to look for the supervisory authorities. Nowadays, even with the resolution and with everything, when you go outside, It's not only the government, it's not the treasury, it is not the financial, it is not even the central bank. It is the level, the standard of the supervisory of that country that give you the confidence and the trust. So when we went to Syria, we went to Jordan, we went to Egypt, we went to Iraq, we look at the supervisory. We know in some countries that the supervisory authorities and supervisory procedures are not as satisfactory as we wish. For that reason, we have to exert extra efforts in that direction. When our banks are operating in France, we frankly come to the supervisory authority of France, and we feel comfortable that we will going together. We going together into the college business or into the MOU that we sign together and we control. And they know very well we are conducting and we are developing our system of supervisory, and we are supervising our banks not only on an individual level, we are supervising our banks on consolidated basis, that we will be taking the operations of the branches outside. We are taking the operations of the subsidiaries outside. We are watching and keeping eyes on the operations of the banks. We cannot sacrifice and neglect and also somehow leave this area. We know the importance of the banking sector in Lebanon. So the relationship between the supervisory authority of Lebanon and the supervisory authority outside is the crucial item. And we will not allow any bank to operate outside without our approval. We will not allow any bank to operate outside if we are not confident of the relationship between ourselves and the supervisory authority of that country. And we will not allow any bank to operate outside unless we are all the time updated by the financial and the operational results of these banks. Our banks are operating safely outside, so we do not fear from our presence overseas. Our presence overseas of the banking sector represents today only 20% of the total volume of the total footings of the banking in Lebanon. 20%, Turkey is taking around 1/3. The second largest is coming to be Egypt. The third is France, and the fourth is Jordan. And we are operating presently, the Lebanese bank, in 27 countries and through 72 subsidiaries and the branches. And we can say and give that we are complying with the international standards. We are committed to comply with international standards, starting by the compliance. We know it's becoming a phobic disease. We know that this is a phobia to us, but this is also a bond. This is a commitment from ourselves. We have to know our customers in Lebanon. We have to know our customers overseas. We have to know them in identity, in detailed identity, and more important, we have to know them, that how the money is coming to them. What is the source of that money? If it is commensurate and if it matches with their financial capacity, with their financial means, and with their earnings. So we cannot here somehow risk that position. We are part of the international world, we are part of the international markets, and we cannot but be a part of it. And we will conduct all the compliances and all the procedures to keep our banks free. And in this case, I would say, and that I announced it in public, that we were proud, and we are still proud of the banking secrecy, and we are still committed to the banking secrecy. Frankly, I would say that lifting the banking secrecy today will hurt Lebanon. Keeping the banking secrecy today will not benefit Lebanon. So this is a contradictory statement, but this is our situation nowadays. So what I am taking is that we say that we are committed to the banking secrecy for the good money, and we are not committed and we are not attached to the banking secrecy when it comes to the dirty money. So this is what I would say. Thank you very much.